This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello everybody and welcome to this sunset safari here from Djuma Private Game Reserve. Those were lions. I'm Stefan Winterboer and this is Safari Live. Hello everybody, we just had a slight change of direction there as you came back to us. If you forgot, if you didn't hear when I said hello, I'm Stefan Winterboer. We got Senzo on camera today, and yes, I was right there. We have these young lions on a termite mound. They've been here since this morning. We don't really know where the moms are at the moment. It's quite possible that moms have left these little guys to go hunting. And it's not uncommon for lions to be left on their own, to be quite honest with you, and sometimes for multiple days, giving rise to the often told belief that that lions are abandoned from time to time. And of course, then people must do everything that they can to try and save them. That's not entirely the case. Quite often it's just because moms have had to work quite hard for food. Now, I do owe everybody an apology. We have had a series of technical issues this afternoon, which has left us a bit late getting started today, but better late than never, I suppose. And as soon as the Mara comes back online, we hope that they will join us for this sunset safari today as well. In the meantime, you're stuck with me and you're stuck with these cats, and as far as I'm being told by Louise at the moment, this is day number 20 odd of continual cat sightings, which is really cool actually, because it's this time of the year that we have these cats not moving very much and giving us such viewing pleasure. Now, this is the first time I've seen these in Kahumas in quite some time. I actually was trying to think this morning, when was the last time I actually saw these lions with cubs, and I can't actually remember. It was definitely more than a year ago. Probably close to about a year and a half ago that I saw in Kahumas, at least anyway, from a vehicle. I haven't done a vehicle-based safari in Djuma for almost 2 years now. As weird as that sounds, or at least that's what the memory is. I can't really remember when the last time I did it. Now, don't forget, this is an interactive show, so feel free to ask me as many questions as you can, and don't be shy about these questions. You know, we'll obviously answer the ones that are relevant, and ask them as fast as you can, so that we can get your questions, as many of your questions, answered as possible. It's so typical of a young male lion, already displaying that sort of very laid-back, lazy attitude in these afternoon suns. It's not much above 20 degrees centigrade at the moment. I would say it's probably in the region of about 24, 25 degrees centigrade. So very calm, cool afternoon. There's a slight breeze blowing, as you can see from the grass that you're having a look at there. And this young lion got hot enough to lie in the shade come midday probably, and hasn't moved much since then. Whereas the rest of the brothers and sisters are all lying on top of the termite mound. And that is because that is where they get the best view of the surrounding bush. Being young cubs like this, they definitely like to know and react to the approach of potential threats long before they've seen, and give them enough time to create some distance. At this age, other male lions are the biggest threat that they have to worry about, as well as hyena, potentially I think they're a little bit too big for a big male leopard to try and tackle, but elephant and buffalo will also be a significant threat to them. Laurie, you want to know how many lions are in this pride? Now, Laurie, it's going to be a very difficult question for me to answer, unfortunately, because I know absolutely nothing about the current status of the Nkuhuma pride as it is. Potentially I could ask Louise for some help, or for some of you at least anyway. I've been in Kenya for 6 months, Laurie, and before that I was just doing walking safaris here and never bumped into these guys a lot at all. But Louise has just told me that there's 14 members to this particular pride, and it will be made up mainly of adult females and some cubs, and 9 of them are cubs, and then there's 5 adult females, and you probably find that that's about the carrying capacity for this particular area. Usually between 4 and about 6 adult females. In this particular case there's 5 adult females, and then they can have anywhere up to 6 babies each. So it's a massive amount of lions that can be on any given property at any given time. In this particular case, there are 14 cubs, or 14 young lions, made up of a range of different ages, not all together, and very close. Lions are a contact species, the only social cats in the world, and they will be reliant on one another, not only for eyes and ears, but they'll also rely on one another to help hunt, defend territories. Proud Cat, Mara, you wanted to know how long these lions will wait for their moms. An indefinite amount of time. So the moms will be gone for anything from a couple of hours to a couple of days. At about 2 weeks, though, these cubs will not start, they won't start wandering, but they will start to be looking very thin and scrawny, and at that point starvation would become a real problem for them. But it's not uncommon for a couple of days to go by where these lions just lying up like this, conserving energy while mom hunts. And it's unusual for lions not to come and fetch their babies, even if their mother was killed, for instance by a buffalo or by an elephant or by another lion. The other adult female lioness will come back and fetch these cubs, and so it's hardly ever that you find a cub that's uninjured or not sick, being abandoned for too long. Of course, the rule with the pride is once you're an adult, though, if you can keep up, you'll get looked after. If you can't keep up, then stay with the cubs, and if there are no cubs, then sorry for you. That is, unfortunately, pride law. Some nice silhouettes there, and sort of this very bright afternoon sun, I must be honest with you. Now, Riti, you'd like to know what age cubs become independent by? It's a nice question, Riti, because it's different for male and for female. Female cubs become independent, and I mark independence as when they are a beneficial part of the hunting party. In other words, when they can actually add, if not much expertise, but definitely an extra pair of claws and teeth, at about 9 months to about a year and a half. Male lions are something a little bit different in that they grow up and become adults at around about 2 to 2.5 years, so about a year after females. Although they're considered completely adults at about 2.5 years old for both male and female, females definitely become play a more beneficial role in the pride dynamics at a much earlier age than what males do. Males tend to rely on their size and bully their way around carcasses, and it's only when they start to react to their mothers coming back into estrus again, which happens anywhere from about 18 months or so at its earliest to about 36 months or so for their mothers. That's how long the cycle takes if their cubs are successful, if they rear their cubs successfully. And male cubs only really leave the pride once their mothers, or once they start to react to their mothers coming into estrus. The females will chase them out, and then the pride males chase them out, and then they go on an exodus basically and a journey for another 2 to 2.5 years before they are strong enough to take over their own pride. And the hope is that is far enough away from their natal pride that inbreeding isn't too much of a problem. Female lioness, they never move away. They will stick within their natal range and within their pride until they die. It isn't uncommon for you to get nomadic females and breakaways. It is common to get breakaways, but it's usually when a pride has gotten too big. And what happens is the sisters will break away and split away and start their own pride, called a breakaway pride. And sometimes you get some tragedy that befalls that basically befalls these lions, and you can get single lioness living on their own as a single lioness breakaway pride. That can sometimes happen. Now, I'm told by Louise that the Mara is on the line at the moment, and Brent is eagerly waiting to say hello. We'll catch up with you in a little bit.
Fantastic, splendid, beautiful, vast, open Maasai Mara in Kenya. My name is Brent Leo Smith. I have Manu on camera today, and we're in the hankering for spotted cats, and one spotted cat in particular, a leopard. So I'm heading all the way down south towards Purungat and Majia Jafu to look for that gorgeous female leopard and her 9-month-old male cub. So we're going to be bundling along. We are probably about halfway there so far, so we've still got some distance to do, and it is quite a stunning evening so far, and hopefully James will be online shortly because he's got a lovely spotted surprise for you up on the escarpment. I found it for him, but we won't tell him that. Shh, don't tell James. I found it. Let's go see what it is.
I am here. That's where I am. Good afternoon, everybody. Slightly subdued in my voice today because there are a lot of people around me. The reason there are a lot of people around me, my name is James Hendry. Good. And the reason there are a lot of people around me is, of course, because just over there in the grass there is a cheetah. A female cheetah who Fergus tells me is a devourer of oribi, a rare antelope that lives on the slopes here. Now, Palin, we're straight into the questions here. You didn't even bother to greet me, but that's okay. You say, are cheetah, do they not normally hunt in groups? No, they don't. By default, a cheetah female is solitary. So once she reaches adulthood, which this cheetah has, she will live a solitary life, unless she's accompanied by cubs. The exception, of course, is males who sometimes form coalitions. Probably about 50% of the time you'll find them in a coalition of 2 or up to 5, as we've learnt over the last few months. But often males are on their own as well. And then they do hunt, but the way they hunt is not quite as cooperative as the lions hunt, for example. They don't set an ambush like lions do. They tend to, I suppose they hunt a bit more like wild dogs, where the first one to grab onto a piece of prey then gets helped out by the others. And so, yes, they can hunt as groups, but not as in a sort of, what should we say, one hesitates to use the term coordinated way, in the same way that lions do, but there is an element of cooperation there. And if you're wondering how on earth Palin managed to ask us a question, well, the mystery is about to be solved. You can talk to us using the hashtag #SafariLive on Twitter. Otherwise, there's another way. Oh yes, you can use the chat section in the YouTube broadcast that you happen to be watching. We'll do our best to get any questions or comments that you have, and of course one of the most exciting things of doing a live safari is talking to people live. So please feel free to send through any questions you like. Now, I believe that apart from this cheetah, that is not the only animal out here, and apart from Brent and I, well, we aren't the only animals out here either. Scott, with his very bristly beard, has managed to find himself a beefalo. And back with us because Scott has got no audio. I suspect perhaps his bristling beard needs just a little bit further combing, and then he'll be able to speak through it and you'll be able to hear what Scott has to say. Anyway, our plan for this afternoon is to sit with this cheetah for the next little while. She looks quite full to me, so I don't think she's necessarily going to get up and go on the hunt, and so we won't probably be with her the whole afternoon, and there doesn't seem to be a great deal about or around here that she might want to hunt. Now, in case you're wondering, our objective out here is twofold. One, of course, is to deliver the scheduled broadcast. That's what we're doing now. But, of course, also, during the season that we're here in the Mara, it is to find what we call the unscheduled action, which would be hunting, I suppose. But now, as the herds have retreated, it will be other short stories that might be interesting. Elephants coming down to the water, for example. Buffalo attacking cheetah. That's very unlikely to happen. But those sorts of short stories that would be interesting, and so that's the sort of objective of what we're doing at the moment. And so in addition to being in the scheduled broadcasts, we will be out quite a lot out of scheduled times, and then we'll broadcast on nature's schedule. Jason, you're wondering what the weather's been like recently. It depends on how recent you mean, Jason. About an hour ago it was hot and very pleasant. About 5 minutes ago it became quite cloudy, and there's a chilly wind blowing in, and as per usual when Fergus and I are out here, there's the odd spattering of rain. So, it's definitely getting hotter, Jason, over the last, they say that August is the coldest month here. I think I would agree with that. September was a bit warmer, and certainly in the last week or so, it's definitely become a little bit warmer during the hottest parts of the day. So certainly the Mara does seem to be warming up. But the rain in the afternoons shows very little sign of dissipating, which is very interesting, because as I've mentioned to many of you before, well, the long rains you'll read end in the middle of July. Well, this has been a catastrophic failure of information this year. Certainly when one of our directors said to me, or said to one of us, when we were bemoaning the rain covers, she said, well, of course the rain stopped now. That was 3 months ago. It's quite windy still, and so it's pretty good hunting conditions here. We'll probably knock about just for, I'm going to say, another half an hour or so with this leopard cheetah, and then we'll press on away from here and see what else we can find. Now, it is a great pleasure, of course, that Stefan Winterboer is back in South Africa on drive, and so I'm going to hand you back to him in exactly 2 seconds.
Welcome back all the way to sunny South Africa for this afternoon safari, and I hope that you were enjoying whatever Brent had to say. It's different here, the green and the brown of the bush. I've had to obviously leave that lion sighting for now. It is the only lion sighting in this particular area, and so it has a lot of attention. And unlike the Mara, which has relatively free or open sightings where basically as many cars as the area can take and view at any given time, this particular area has a restriction on the amount of cars, and it's to reduce stress in this environment. The bush is very thick and the trees are very dense, and so to have a lot of cars crashing through here is not a good thing. Whereas in the Mara, it's something slightly different. It's very open there and the grass is very short, and you can have a lot more cars there without doing much damage or influencing animal behavior at all, which is not too much of a problem. It gives us a time to look around and see what else is going on. Now, Charles, you wanted to know if this is really live. And you know, Charles, actually that's the first time anyone's ever asked me that in 3 years of doing this. Charles, we're 100% live. So this is happening right now. We're coming to you from South Africa, right in the Kruger National Park. And Brent, who was just on camera, is coming to you out of Kenya, for 3,500 miles north of here, out of the Mara Triangle National Park. Isn't that amazing? And from the picture coming in at the camera right there to wherever you are on the planet, it's anywhere from about 20 to 40 seconds old. So you're seeing things pretty much as they're happening right now. We're a couple of hours from sunset, and this particular safari will extend into the evening, where I will use the light to find some nocturnal creatures. And what was I going to say? Kenya is about an hour ahead of us. In actual fact, exactly an hour ahead of us. And so Brent will be heading into the dark before I do. And you'll see a gorgeous sunset twice, an hour apart from one another. Hopefully on today's safari, unless there's a lot of clouds around where he is at the moment, which is quite a common thing actually. As you'll see, here we have winter, and it's the end of our dry season, end of winter. We definitely have a winter and a summer here, whereas it's coming to the end of the dry season in Kenya at the moment, but no winter there. What I'm looking at is a big eagle in the top of the tree. So let's see. We'll first try and identify it from here. And when you have a look at a big eagle like that with a brown head and a white chest, it can only be one of two. And the black-breasted snake eagle or martial eagle, the difference would be the feathers on the legs and the colors of the eye. So let's have a careful look and see what I can see here. So I see a little crest on top of the head. I see a bright yellow eye. Are we seeing feathers on the legs? They don't look feathered, hey? But that is unmistakable, that little crest and that yellow eye. That is a martial eagle, the largest eagle that we found out here. Now I do want to point your attention to that back claw that's busy hanging out the bottom underneath that horizontal branch that this eagle is sitting on at the moment. You see how massively developed that claw is, and that is used with great force to pierce through the body cavities and the skulls in some instances, especially monkeys. And you can imagine on a small little monkey that weighs 10 pounds or so, something like that dagger coming through your skull. And they can grip hard enough with their legs to break bones in your arms. All the force is in those legs. An absolutely enormous eagle, the martial eagle. If you translate its genus and species name, it's the warlike eagle. And it's given that name because of that very fierce gaze that it has. Now this is a road that's a little bit closer there, and I think what we're going to try and do is see if we can get closer, because to be honest with you, these birds make for magnificent picture opportunities. So a bit far away from where we are now, but let's see if before it flies away we can get a bit closer. Now, birds of prey operate within a very narrow weight band. Too heavy, they don't fly anywhere. Too light, and they end up being a bit wild and never ever sit down. And too light still, and they end up with no energy and they can actually die. In this particular case, I'm hoping that this bird has had a nice decent meal and is just catching the last rays of the sun before heading out. Now let's see if we can get a little bit closer here. This is a beautiful view, and it's going to give us the sun full on in the face of this particular martial eagle, and you're going to be able to see that piercing yellow gaze. Let's just get you into a nice place. There we go. Hold on, and that's going to give you, and from here you can actually see the dots on its chest. Come on, look at us. Get ready with your screenshots, everybody. No, don't go anywhere. Are you going to fly? Yeah, you're going to turn around from us. That isn't. There you go. Take a photo. Bang! All that lovely yellow eye. Hopefully you've all got it. Alrighty. We're going to sit here with this eagle a little bit and see if it... oh, look at that. Beautiful. There we go. Have a look at that. Now, true eagles have got feathers on their legs, and as you can see from this particular angle, although the feathers are against this bird's legs, you can actually see all the way down. Oh, that's beautiful. Kellen, you wanted to know if this could lift a 2-year-old child. Absolutely, Kellen. This eagle could and has taken prey up to 35 kilograms, which is, they won't be able to.
Hello everyone. I am told you were rushed off Steph's vehicle as he was midway through answering one of your questions. Apologies for that, but at least you've come across to a very beautiful scene with those elephants and some rays of the sun. My name's Scott Dyson. I'm teamed up with Jeandre on camera and really looking forward to this afternoon's adventure with all of you guys. Our plan is to head deep into the southern reaches of the Mara Triangle and get into the area of the Purungat Bridge, where we are hoping to find some migrating herds, the last of them that are possibly going to be in that area. Another thing I'm hoping for is that we could get lucky and see a crossing. I'm told opposite an area called Lookout Hill, which I'll show you in a few moments, there were some wildebeest that were massing at one of the crossing points yesterday. They decided not to cross, but who knows, maybe they will be thinking about crossing now or later this evening. Isn't this beautiful though? We've seen a lot of elephants this afternoon. We've covered 25 kilometers exactly so far, which is about 18 miles, heading south, like I say, from camp towards an area where we can mix up the scenery. Myself and Jeandre haven't been down here for a long time, so we're keen to do a bit of a checkup. And I think Brent is also going to be coming down here, again hoping that we're going to catch up with the remaining herds of wildebeest that might be lurking in the southern reaches of the reserve. It's a beautiful, beautiful afternoon, quite windy. Possibility of rain later. There's a lot of clouds building, but we've been lucky. The last 3 nights we've had no rain, which makes our lives a lot easier. Isn't that absolutely beautiful? So you guys are getting spoiled today. There's, I'm told, 4 vehicles taking you all out. So just goes to show that even though we were technically only supposed to put out 2 feeds from the Mara this afternoon, we're also excited to explore and share this area with you, that 3 of us decided to head out. Marvelous. Well, we're going to head on for 2 reasons. You aren't sending through enough questions to us, and we've got a long way to go. So let's keep moving. And I'd just like to show you where Lookout Hill is. That is where we are going to be going. It's at about 11 o'clock there, Jeandre. There we go. So we are going to, that's on the eastern side of the Mara River. And just below that, I'm told there was quite a few wildebeest yesterday thinking of crossing. It doesn't look like there are any just there now. Who knows, maybe they're down by the river, but we've got quite a long way to go to get there. And the good news is you're going to head back to James and his cheetah.
I wonder where Scott is going, everybody. We have not gone anywhere, of course, because here we find ourselves with this cheetah, who I don't think has been named just yet. I'm not going to suggest that we try and name her, because I'm almost certainly the cheetah researchers will do that for us, and then we will take that name on, or perhaps the guides of the area will do that. Chris, you're wondering this cheetah has cubs. I'm going to say almost certainly not. It's very seldom that cheetah, like lions, will rest up away from their cubs if they have them. They will from time to time, but because of the extra protection needed by little cheetah cubs, you'll find, I think, that unless the cheetah is seriously exhausted from hunting or something like that, she'll almost certainly go back to them as soon as she's ready to rest. So I don't think so. That's one of the reasons I don't think so. The other reason, of course, is that she doesn't appear to be lactating at all. She is very full. We're going to spend another 5 minutes with her, I think, and then we're going to head off and see if we can't find something slightly more mobile. Riti, good question. Difficult to say. We want to know the difference between a male and a female cheetah. Well, I mean, if they lift their tails and they're walking, then it's very obvious. But unlike with leopards, where the female is noticeably smaller than the male, she's about a third smaller than him. Well, no, sometimes even half the size of the male. In fact, often half the size of the male. With a bigger head, a male's got a bigger head, he's got a thicker neck, he's got a slightly more grizzled appearance quite often. With the leopards, cheetah are not the same. If you were to see this female next to a male, standing next to him, you'd see that he is noticeably bigger. He's taller, but he's slightly more thick-set as well, but not when you see them on their own like this. So the only reason I really know that she's a female is because, well, A, I was told, and B, I've seen behind her tail, so I know that she's a female. But a male would be extremely difficult to distinguish if you didn't know the cheetahs of an area, if you just saw them lying like this. Their heads look very similar unless you see them next to each other. So it's really not as obvious as it is in many mammal species, the leopard being the obvious and most commonly made comparison. You can see that she's very sleepy, however. And I think cheetah probably slightly less opportunistic than something like lion or leopard. And so with a full belly like this, even if the opportunity to kill came about and wasn't, if it was very easy, then she'd probably take it. But because of the increased risks of hunting, running at 100 kilometers an hour or 60 miles an hour across any kind of unsmooth track, if you like, carries enormous risks with it, and so she will be far less prepared to take risks hunting than her larger cat cousins if she's full. So I don't think she's going to do a huge amount. Hello, Fox. You're wondering if the cheetah's full or pregnant. I think she's full. She might be pregnant. But I think from the way she's breathing, it tells me that she's just eaten. That enormous belly on her is also slightly too far forward for it to be, I think, some youngsters sort of waiting to be born. It's not impossible that she's pregnant. She could indeed be carrying little cubs, but that is not the cause of her fat belly at the moment, or not the major cause, I don't think. Sushan, interesting question. You say that, or you ask, do cheetah reproduce more slowly than, say, leopards or lions? No, they don't. I think they reproduce probably at roughly the same speed, maybe even slightly more or faster than lions. A lioness will normally give birth every sort of 2 to 2.5, maybe 3 years, whereas I think a cheetah you'll find in good conditions where competition is not particularly fierce could potentially give birth slightly more regularly than that. And I think the reason for that is that their cubs get taken out probably more often than the bigger predators' cubs. Leopards about the same as lions, really, maybe slightly shorter birthing interval. If you were wondering about the noise and the sort of sound of engines, and you may have seen one or two vehicles, it is of course because we are in an area filled with tourists who, well, due to their enthusiastic what should we say, dispensation for nature, they are the reason, of course, that the Maasai Mara exists. Without their money, we would not be here enjoying these sightings. Right, we are going to leave this cheetah now and go and see if we can't find something else. We might pop back and see if she does something just after it gets dark. What I really find odd about this time of year, of course, is how green it is. And the reason it's so green is because we've had so much rain. So now I'm going to hand you back to the golden brown grey grasses of Djuma with Stefan Winterboer.
We've got a little squirrel in the tree there, And there's the southern tree squirrel, and one of the cutest things that you'll ever see. Just have a look at that face. Now, my wife has brought up 5 of these rascals, and out of all the pets I've ever owned, bird, hamsters, fish, snakes, scorpions, dogs, cats, you name it, I must be honest with you that these squirrels make for the best pets. They're full of life, and it's just given me such a unique insight into... Oh, and just let me qualify that. We don't buy these little things. They're all rescued from houses where other people's dogs and cats have killed parents of the baby squirrels, and then the baby squirrels are then orphaned. And my wife is on a list of people in the local area who then put their hand up to say they'll rear these little squirrels and release them. And so far, out of the 5, we've lost 2 and released 3. And they grow up pretty quick. You're looking at about 6 months to 9 months, and then they're gone out of your house. And from babies where you're waking up every 2 hours to feed them with a bottle, exactly the same as a human child, to 9 months when they basically rule your house for a couple of weeks. Have a look at this. Just this sun behind us gives us a nice opportunity to look at all these birds. That is a Burchell starling, and you'll see when he turns towards us he has a dark eye and not the bright orange eye of the other species of starling that we get here. I've gone completely blank on what the other starling is. It is the most crazy thing. I don't quite know what it is. My short-term memory, my long-term memory is all going for a ball lately, and I don't actually know what the cause of it is. But what you're having a look over there is definitely the Burchell starling. The other starling is the lesser blue-eared starling. The greater blue-eared starling. That is the other one that we get here. And I don't know, these ones don't shine as much as what the blue-eared starlings do, but they've got a deeper iridescence. Now what that means is that there's either a thinner or a thicker layer of keratin over the feathers, which creates that deep blue iridescence, rather than the light blue of the greater blue-eared. Iridescence being that sheen that you see, that oiled look on those feathers. Oh. And the reason why he's sitting at the top of that branch is specifically to make his feathers shine. If you have a careful look, you'll see that there's a lot of dung on that branch, just on the left-hand side. And that is from him depositing it there. He must spend a considerable amount of time here, preening himself and looking pretty. And basically, that is exactly what he's doing. He's standing in the sun is glinting and gleaming off of his feathers, and making him look stunning to all the ladies in the area, or at least he hopes, at least. Now he comes down, he's going to sit on the ground and peck at something. There against the ground, he's also looking brilliantly sleek, and very typical starling walk. They're insectivorous birds, and they'll actually attack a wide variety of prey, including scorpions and massive spiders. I've even seen one with a snake once before. This is typical feeding behavior. They'll walk around. It's quite a long-legged gait, and then peck at things from side to side, and hopefully uncover an unlucky insect. I like them. They're precocious birds, cheeky things. Looking fantastic in the sunlight. Senzo doing a brilliant job of keeping him in the frame as this bird looks around for something to eat. This time of the year, insect pickings are very slim, hence this bird having to do a considerable amount of walking around to actually find something. Let's see, there we go. Dived in there, looks like he missed it though. Having a quick chat to anybody who's listening. That is lovely. Look at those long legs. Now when you're tracking these guys, they've got a long toe. Their back toe is almost double the length of any of their other toes. They're 3 forward-facing toes. And there's almost a hand span between their tracks. That's how long that bird's legs were. There's almost a hand span between the back of the front of the one leg and the back of the other leg. And when you're tracking them walking down the road, long back toe, three toes facing forward, 1 toe facing back. That's almost double the length, and then a long stride is very typical of the Birchall starling. Birchall, of course, having named a few things after himself in his I don't quite want to say in the arrogance, but in his whatever you want to call it. Now, Kathy, you wanted to know, when do we think the woodland kingfisher are going to be back? Kathy, generally speaking, they are back by December. Sometimes it's the first week of December, sometimes it's the last week of November. You get a few eager beavers that come in late October and early November. But they'll start to trickle through this area in about November. Let's call it the 15th of November, and then we should start seeing them around about the first week of December is when guarantee that we'll have at least one woodland kingfisher back. And then they'll stick around. They're one of the last birds to go away, and then they fly into Central Africa, not quite into Kenya, although there's 1 or 2 hanging around, but definitely into the wetter, more equatorial parts of Central Africa, a little bit further west of where we have our camp in the Mara. Sorry, won't you repeat Paula's question? Are the starlings also migratory birds? Paula wanted to know. Paula, not these particular ones, not the one that you were just having a look at with me now, but the violet-backed starling is definitely a migratory bird, and the wattled starling is not a migratory bird, but it changes so dramatically. It goes from having pretty drab coloured feathers and not hanging around in flocks to hanging around in these fairly large flocks. So you'd think it's migratory, but it's not. The only starling that I know of that's migratory here is the violet-backed starling. That bird that you're having a look at over there is one of the more camouflaged and larger of the birds here. That is a black-bellied bustard. This was a bit of a tongue twister for me. Black-bellied bustard. And you also get the red-crested bustard here as well. This one is the black-bellied. You can see the black belly sticking out of the back, and very, very good camouflage on the back. And that is because they nest in scrapes on the ground. And what a scrape is, it's basically a nest made by scraping away the vegetation. And then the female incubates her eggs by sitting on them, and of course needs to stay as hidden as possible. And that is where that beautiful camouflage on the back of her feathers comes from. And you can see just with the grass and the sticks in the background how easily she would fit in if that was, if you didn't know that there was a bird there. Senzo showing you, when you blur it just a little bit, the edges of that bird become almost indistinguishable. And very, very good camouflage. See what's going to happen. Are you going to call? Oh. So basically that call that bird's doing now has just discounted the fact that this is a black-bellied bustard and has turned it into a red-crested bustard. Charlie smokes today, I'm getting it wrong. So that call tells you that it was a red-crested bustard and not a black-bellied bustard, which has got a significantly different call. Now I'm going to show you how easy it is from the back to actually mistake this, so bear with me here while I try and redeem a little bit of my reputation here. If you wouldn't mind having a look here for me, please, Senzo. So here is the red-crested bustard, the one that we've been looking at right now, and here is the bird that I confused it with. And as you can see from the back, they are near identical, with the exception of, and I should have known it, the white stripe down the center of the feather there. But other than that, they are virtually identical birds. with the exception of their very different calls. The black-bellied bustard making a very different call to the red-crested one. France, you wanted to know if your pitmayfro has started to call yet. The pitmayfros being the red-chested cuckoos, they haven't started to call yet, no. They will arrive probably, although they are in Kenya, which makes it a little bit more difficult for me to judge. Although Louise has just told me now that Tristan heard one yesterday here, which is very early. Although I suppose it's already almost October, you know. First rains have fallen. So not uncommon for them. It is October today, I'm being told. Wow, you know what, maybe I should just stop talking today. It's one of those days where everything just seems to be going pear-shaped. Let's have a look at another bustard. We can see from the front now that beautiful chest coming out now, which they used to display to one another. So just to answer your question there, Tristan did hear a red-chested cuckoo yesterday, a pitmayfro. They get their name from their call, which sounds like they're saying pitmayfro. Wow, that's a striking bird. Beautiful. Now, if we look very carefully at the head, let's see if we can see the crest. I've never in my life seen the red crest on a red-crested coron. They have to lift that brown cap for the red feathers to come out, and they only do that when the males are displaying heavily at one another. But maybe we're lucky and we could get a glimpse of those red feathers. But this is just a beautiful sighting of this bird. So often these birds with these very cryptic camouflage, maybe we can see it there. If they scrape their head again, we'll go close and see if she can scrape open, or he can scrape open his crest for us. And be very quick on your screens there to get a picture of the red crest on a red-crested bustard. Is one of those moments a lot of birders wait an entire lifetime for. Very carefully combing through the grasslands here. We're very quick to dart up a grasshopper, an unsuspecting grasshopper, or some termites. Another insectivorous bird. Isn't that black belly just absolutely fantastic? Yeah, nice view of the legs. Unlike the starling, this particular bird only has 3 forward-facing toes, with the 4th toe having reduced in size and has climbed up the leg a little bit. They've got one, it just doesn't register in their tracks, and it's because this bird hardly ever perches at all. You may be able to catch a glimpse. It does have 3 forward-facing toes and one backwards. She's found herself a termite colony now, and giving us a fantastic view of her entire black belly at the moment. And you can see that the lack of iridescence on her belly is unlike the starling, who's also got black feathers, so completely melanin infused to saturation, but without the thick layer of clear keratin over the top. It is not iridescent. It doesn't shine. It doesn't have that gloss. Hear the call again. Close on the head, on the back of the head. Let's see if he fluffs up his crest. Oh, that is beautiful. No crest just yet. Yeah, that was absolutely, even there you could see that gular sac that they used to enhance and amplify the sound. You saw that was inflated and deflated very quickly while he was making his call. Now, as the season hots up, these calls will intensify, and then they will actually jump into the air at the end of the call and do this backwards spinning roll down to the earth, the last second flaring out and landing. And quite a sight to see. They do that for a couple of weeks and then they stop again. Kitty Bang Bang, you wanted to know if female red-crested corons have the red crest. That's actually a good question. I don't actually know. Let me go and have a look. They're so similar, these corons, to one another, you know. Let me just see. I doubt it. Buff cheeks. The female, let's see here. Crown brown flecked white. Not barring. No, it doesn't say anything about that. It just talks about the chevrons. Male's crest raised in display. So males have a crest. It doesn't say anything about the females having the crest. I'm hoping that he raises it so that we can see it at least once in this particular sighting. I hope you guys are all standing still ready with your fingers on those snapshots. Hey, come on, do your call and flare up that thing. Oh, these feathers are beautiful. Large eye. Generally nocturnal bird. Look at that. But I think what's happening is the fact that there's not that many insects around, and I think they need to feed often. Have a look at that foot structure now. You can see it in the open sand there. Very clear. It's the 3 toes with that tiny little vestigial toe. What are you seeing there? Now, this is such a nice sighting of this. You know, it's very rare that you get to sit and enjoy a sighting in the open of these particular birds. They definitely are common here. They're not an uncommon bird, but to see this bird in this type of environment, in the open, where we can share it calling and have this beautiful sunlight on these feathers, where you can get a good look at how fantastic they are, is actually quite rare. The bird now is going to be moving off into the thick colour, into the thick grass cover, and will virtually disappear as soon as she goes, or he goes. Here we go, one last thing. Come on, flare it up. No, still no crest. Oh, we'll have to leave that for a different day. All right, we're going to be sending you 3,500 miles north this time, and to Scott, who's waiting with something interesting to show you.
I think Steph's made a mistake there. First of all, I didn't realise Scott was as far north as the Sudan, so that's quite interesting. He must have driven very fast out of camp today. And I am not Scott, of course, I am James. So Scott of the Sudan is clearly perhaps trawling the Sud to see if he can find some white-eared cob. We're sitting here, of course, with some, I think, rather skinny-looking elephants in the Maasai Mara. And they are eating grass, as is their wont. Now, we were told a little while back that when the wildebeest disappeared and the zebra wafted off down to the south, the residents, so-called, of this area would make their way back into the plains. And one of the things that apparently are seen far more away from migration season are the elephants. Well, here are some elephants, and I definitely think that since my return back to the Mara, that was after my little leave that I had back in South Africa, I think that there are more elephants on these plains. I don't think that they are I'm not sure that they necessarily hid from the wildebeest, but I think they go and spend a bit more time up in the escarpment regions, and they sort of just try and get away from the mad holiday rush that takes place here. And I suspect you'll find that these elephants eat a lot more in the way of grass than the ones do down in a place like Djuma, and that is simply because there is so much more grass to eat, and they don't have to eat logs and trees. And I also think that's why their tusks are perhaps slightly longer and more sharp than the ones down at Djuma, and not also... Sorry. A bit of a frog there. And also, I think that's probably why the tusks have developed to be so much thinner, I think, and less stubby than the ones that are in use in the Kruger for constantly peeling away bark. Now, we have a question from somebody whose name is Cheese potato. Well, cheese potato, you want to know when is the migration season? Well, the migration never really ends, but it comes into this area. In fact, it definitely never ends. It's continuous, but it comes into this area normally around the beginning to, or somewhere around the middle of July. This year it came around the 11th of July. Well, when the first wildebeest herds came into this area, and then they normally depart sort of around the middle of October. This year in the Triangle, they've seen a much shorter migration season, so instead of the sort of average 120 days or so, they've had 90 days, which is, well, as you can work out if you like mathematics, 25% shorter than the last one. So that is quite interesting. And quite why that should have been the case, no one really knows. They will tell you that it's because of the weather patterns in the area. It might be, but I think that the amount of rain we've had here is so vast that it surprises me that they aren't still here. And because of that, I think they may well be back here. All right, we're going to move on from these elephants and see if we can try and emulate what Scott Dyson has just achieved with his latest find.
So Bex in the final control has done some crafty maneuvers. She took the risk of just telling me that I'm live. We're in a low signal area, but now that she stopped talking to me on the radio, our picture should stay clear. So I'm not going to be able to answer any of your questions, but we are going to be able to show you this beautiful pride of lions. There's a total of 3 adult lioness, one of which you can see on the left over there. She's a brute. She looks in great condition. Yes, you. She's been holding her nose up into the wind, possibly smelling some prey. And there's 6 sub-adults that look to be about 6 to 8 months old, dotted around, one of which when we arrived was trying to dig out possibly a warthog out of a termite mound. We'll show you that one shortly. It's on the other side of the vehicle. But how cool is that? We just bumped into these guys. There was some topi looking at them. I wonder if the topi are still... Yeah, let's show the topi. The topi are still looking at us and the lion. So it's that topi over there that helped us to spot these lion. And as you can see, well, you can't see that it's perched on a termite mound, but that is how it is elevated, keeping a beady eye on these potential problem animals. Oh, photobomb. And then the other lion that was digging was this one over here, and there's a hole on the other side of this termite mound. And what you may find has happened is that I think these lions have been here all day, and they may have kept warthog in that burrow the whole entire day. So I'm guessing the lions may have arrived here early in the morning when it was maybe still dark, and tried to dig the warthog out of their hole. And of course, if you were a warthog in a burrow and you knew there were some lions waiting outside, you might forego food for the day in the knowledge that there's a chance a lion might jump on your back. So that's what the scene is here. Sadly, because it is a bit of a low signal area, it wouldn't make sense for us to stay here. Chandra is going to show you one of the other sub-adults over there. So there's a few of them all dotted around. Wonderful. Hello, Tanith in Canada. You would like to know which cat has got the longest whiskers. And it's a good question. I'm actually not 100% sure, but my guess would be a leopard. I don't think cheetah have got very long whiskers, and I think leopards are in general probably a little bit longer than lions. But I could be wrong. If anybody would like to double check, I would appreciate that. Now I'll take a look here. We've got one sneaky little lion. Is the pole in the way? Oh no, it's perfect. Kind of, no. Well, you can see this little cub has kind of crept up on us, but sadly the structural support which holds our roof up is a little bit in the way. I'm very glad that support is there because it allows us to sleep on the roof, which is a new addition. And it's just my vehicle that has been rooftop sleeping friendly thus far, but Jamie's and Brent's are going to shortly be fixed up as we tweak and modify our vehicles to turn into basically a mobile hotel, so we can live comfortably, spending hours out here, so that we make sure we can get you guys into front seat position for any awesome events that unfold. Speaking of which, it wouldn't make really a whole deal of sense for us to stay here, because if we see something, we have a strong chance of not being able to show you. So I think we are going to head off. As wonderful as it would be to stay with these lions, we are going to head out and see what else we can find. The beauty of the Mara is that there are so many lions around. Oh, big yawn, screenshots. Oh, not a big yawn. That was one of the smallest yawns I think I've ever seen. And for those of you who don't take screenshots, I would urge you to start doing it. And once you've started taking a few snaps, and you can get a little basic editing suite and play with your photos between the safaris. It's a good way to document what you guys see along the road with us, as well as a nice hobby. We also love looking through the Twitter feeds and all of your screenshots that you've edited. So for those of you who do, thank you and well done. For those of you who don't, best you get involved. Marvelous. Just going to keep an eye on this cub as we head off, because it was a little bit inquisitive. I thought it might follow the vehicle, but it is not following us. It is, the cheeky little thing. We're watching you. Try and get a Chandra. So that's the one sneaking up on us, and we're going to be sending you.
Welcome back. And we've just come to the Treehouse Dam area. There was a leopard seen here this morning, and this time of the day is when leopards start to move around, and the bush will start to react to these animals as they're moving here. You'll get birds making alarm calls, francolin, drongos, even things like kingfishers, and monkeys as well. And the dead giveaway would be a squirrel or a monkey chattering at the moment. Now, I do have to apologize for ripping you away from the Mara like that. Where Scott was in a relatively poor signal area, and it was just a matter of time before it got too bad for Scott's signal to reach the receivers, and that you came down to us. It happens from time to time. It's one of those things that bringing you a live show brings with it, as every now and again the signal seems to go AWOL, gets reflected by a particularly shiny leaf or some moisture in the atmosphere. Who knows what the million different types of reasons there are for a signal not working so well. This just to me is sort of such a beautiful scene, because this is what the dry season is in the Kruger National Park. This is my memory as a child of dry bushveld, green pans, algae-filled pans, and just sticks. Not many leaves around at the moment. This lovely brown colour. Jamie, you want to know what my favourite thing is about being back at Djuma? I think exactly what you're looking at right now. I like this time of year. It's not my favourite time of year. My favourite time of the year is January, followed very closely by May. But October definitely has a feeling to it. There's an energy around it. A lot of predator activity. This isn't one. This is something that we rarely see. That is a common or grey duiker, one of the dwarf antelope that we find out here. It looks like a female. She doesn't have any horns on her head, although she also looks quite pregnant, I must be honest with you. Not much is known about the gestation period of duiker. About 3 months or so. But some of the earliest books that I read said anything from 6 months to a year. A very primitive antelope. This is the southernmost range of this particular group of antelope, the duikers. They're very common. They're the most common antelope species in equatorial rainforest. And there the speciation is amazing. There's many, many different species of grey duiker. Let me show you quickly what I'm talking about. So over here we only found one, but in the rest of Africa you find a lot. Let me show you what I mean by a lot. 367, so I'll be with you in just 1 second. So they've got their own paragraph in this particular book. And have a look here as we start to go around. And of particular note this area here. That is the equator, so that dotted line there is the equator, and the pink says where it comes from. So I'm going to... That's the blue duiker, the smallest antelope that we find. And you've got these funny looking forest duiker. Get some fairly large duiker as well. And as you can see from here, that's all Central Africa. Look at that on the zebra duiker. Wouldn't that be something fantastic to see? Oh, once again, Equatorial Africa. Look at this guy's funny crest on his head. This is the black duiker, or the black and the Abbott's duiker. And the yellow-backed duiker. Ogilby's duiker. You ever heard of that name? Ogilby. Cephalophus Ogilby. Bizarre name. And then Gentix duiker. It's also another fantastic duiker, isn't it? Up to 80 kilograms. It's 160 pounds. That's big. That's bigger than an impala. So that's all the duikers that you get. It's quite interesting, eh? Now, those are all found in Equatorial Africa. Here you only find the grey duiker, and then you find the blue duiker in the rainforest as well. Stephen, you'd like to know what the difference is between a gemsbok and an oryx. Stephen, there's no difference between a gemsbok and an oryx. An oryx is just another name for a gemsbok, or the other way around. Outside of South Africa, oryx are called oryx. Inside South Africa, they're lovingly called gemsboks. It's just a local common name for them. Let me see if I can show you a picture of them while we sit here in the sun. 4:39. I'm enjoying the sun. A couple of months from now, we're not going to be able to do this. We'll be hiding away from the sun. So there you go. There's the southern oryx, or gemsbok, as you can see from the name there. There you go. And this is this magnificent antelope there. Easily one of my favorite of all the antelopes. We don't find them in this particular area, unfortunately. They're desert creatures, and so they don't occur in the Kruger National Park. They're not too difficult to find in the Central Kalahari National Park. Many of them there, and very, very beautiful animal to see. All right, we're going to be sending you off to James, and we're going to carry on looking for this leopard that went missing in this area.
Leopard indeed that Steph is looking for, and leopard that we might find over here where we find ourselves, on the fringes of a woodland, which I'll probably have to stop and show you, because otherwise, given the nature of this road, you will, well, feel quite ill if I don't. There we are. Okay, and then, just up ahead of us, on the bush, there is a little bird. Let's have a look at what little bird it is. Oh, there's a very nice picture of the roof flap that I failed to put up earlier. Can you see the little bird, Fergus? Do you see it? Yes, you do. Excellent. It is a cisticola of some description. What a beautiful little bird. Let me just quickly see if I can see which one it is. Isn't he lovely? And I don't know if you can hear his call. He's going... Now, of course, the pectoral patched one, it could be. I don't think it is the pectoral patched one. I don't think it's yellow enough, and I think its head is too very nicely sort of orange. I'm just playing its call. No, it could be. Don't think so, though. Let's keep looking. No. Ooh, red pate testicular, is that possible? No, not found here. It has got a red pate, though, doesn't it? It's one of these little ones. Ooh, winding. Ooh, hang on a second, let me play this one. No. Yes, it is. It is the winding testicular. There we go. Winding testicular, sorry. Not winding. Winding testicular. Excellent. That's a new one for me. I wonder how many of you still keeping your bird lists have got the winding or winding testicular thereupon. Rebecca, did you have the winding testicular on your bird list? I bet you didn't. No. You did not. Well, that's very nice that you appreciate my asking you. I'm so pleased. I hope many of you are now enjoying the sight of the winding testicular winding its way into the night time. Ooh, what is that, Fergus? It is a fast-moving bird. Ooh, it is a swallow. And you have attempted to try and track a swallow at this stage of your life is most impressive, and most you are to be heartily congratulated. I wasn't, in fact, looking for buried treasure under there. I was watching my monitor, which is just here, because I couldn't see what Fergus could see, you see. Good. On we go. Liam's favourite trick in the world, of course, is to not tell you he's brought the camera back and just leave it on you while you are, I don't know, scratching in an inappropriate part of your body, or staring at the monitor like this, or climbing out of the car, or do something inappropriate. And then he doesn't say anything until the director says the camera's on you, at which point you feel dreadful and you start thinking back as to what you were doing and whether you have in the last little while done anything inappropriate. Well, at least that's how it feels for me. Now, what we're going to do from here is to go round to some lions that were over there, and if we can find them there, then we'll sit with them for a while. Otherwise, we'll probably go back to the cheetah. Now, Keely Hart, you say that bird was number 263 for you. That is a lot of birds. I'm assuming that includes includes Juma. 263 is a good return, I think. The winding testicular, winding away. There's a batelier flying there that I'm not going to try and show you because it's gone into the trees and disappeared, and this road is just quite phenomenally uncomfortable. Don't you find, Fergus? It's very uncomfortable. Yes, thank you very much. Right, we're going to go back to Steph shortly. He has got 30 seconds to catch up with time in East Africa. He's working sort of 30 seconds behind us, and he's going to show you the sunset, and hopefully the sun will not have set by the time we go across to him, which will be in precisely 6 seconds from around about now, which means that you're going across to him now.
This area to visit one of my favorite trees, and I like visiting this particular tree because it's an old man of the forest, a giant of its kind, and the boer beans have started to flower already, and this old man is a boer bean, and I'm hoping that this year he puts on a better show than he did last year. Last year he put on a dismal performance, and I was so hoping that he'd put on a nice show, but he obviously was harbouring his strength, knowing that there was a tough season ahead, and sometimes old trees do that. They don't some years they flower, some years they don't, some years they push out a lot of flowers, other years they don't. I haven't been working here for long enough to realize what it is. I haven't observed enough of these trees, these comings and goings of the seasons, to be able to tell you exactly why I feel that this is. I just have noticed it as a phenomenon that occurs. And there's our old friend growing on top of the termite mound in the distance. And we'll stop in a little bit and just share some of this fantastic afternoon with him or her. I don't quite know if it's a him or a her. You can see already looking very good. Some elephant damaged some bark on it last year. I'm hoping that it doesn't have too much of a negative impact on its health and well-being. Sometimes when elephants ring bark a tree, it's to the tree's detriment. And there you can see this old man of the forest standing sentinel over this particular road and its adjacent crossing. And look at that, isn't that just a fantastic tree? Scotia brachypetala. Colin, you've asked me an interesting question. How many bird species do you find in the Maasai Mara and in the in Djuma respectively? Colin, there's about... Oh, I did used to know the answer to this question, Colin. I'm not even going to hazard a guess, Kaylin. You know why? It's because I feel that I might get it wrong for you, but I'm wanting to say around about, in the Cole Kruger National Park area, it's probably around about 500 bird species, plus or minus a couple. And we'll get a selection of that here. In the Maasai Mara, I would imagine that there's probably about the same number of bird species. It's not quite, it's on the equator, but it's not quite a tropical jungle where you'd expect more birds to occur. Perhaps one of my colleagues could answer that question a little bit better. I know that Tristan is an avid birder, as is Brent, and both of them would know the answer to this question, having probably been asked it a few times. How many birds? I'm trying to think. I tell you there are 260 trees, but I can't remember how many birds there are. Can you believe it? So, Kaylin, there will probably be in and around 500 at both locations. I don't think that there'll be more than that here. Now, this particular bourbon hasn't got any flowers on again. That's interesting, you know. I wonder if it's just the females that get flowers, and it's not the male trees. None of these bourbons around this particular area have got any flowers on. I did see one yesterday with some flowers on. Not today. Kathy, you want to know what are those African trees called that are flat on top? Kathy, they are quite aptly called the umbrella thorn acacias, or we're not allowed to use the word acacia, we've got to use the word Vichilia now. So it's Vichilia tortilis is the umbrella thorn acacia. Vichilia tortilis. And have that fantastic flat top crown, and give you that awesome, like, umbrella-like shape. So the flat-topped umbrella thorn Vichilia, and then the camel thorn Vichilia also gives a nice flat top as well. The camel thorn Vichilia, but the best one that you're thinking of is that the umbrella thorn one. Lovely tree. We're coming close to Twin Dams, which is also where there was a leopard seen a little bit earlier today. Also, just making sure that I arrive in these areas as quietly as I can. See if we can pick up on any noises that we're hearing. And by noises, I mean the alarm calls of birds, monkeys, and squirrels, which will give away the presence of, we have a Wahlberg's eagle sitting on her nest. She's now trying to hide away. So the Wahlbergs are back. They are migratory birds from North Africa on the Mediterranean rim in and around Morocco. You can just see the one tail feather of this one sticking out the top there. This is a pale form Wahlbergs, and they come back to the same nest year after year after year. Interesting to know how many years this particular bird has nested in this area. Eagles, of course, like parrots, are some of the most long-lived of all the birds, and it's not uncommon to have birds living for 40 or 50 years. Kanoa, you would like to know if there are ravens here at Djuma. That's actually a nice question, Kanoa, because of course ravens are considered to be a pest and a sign of an unhealthy environment. Kanoa, here you sometimes see the pied raven, but sometimes. I've heard them once or twice, but it's not park to find the pied raven, but they are considered pests. So it was just, there we go, a very quick glimpse of a grey duiker that was in the bushes there. So Kanoa, that's a nice question. Pied ravens are considered naturalized birds. In other words, they were introduced here. They're not endemic to this area. They were introduced, but they've become so common and so widespread that they are now deemed naturalized. There is no way that we'd get rid of them, even if we wanted to. Sadly, South Africa, well, let's say as a triumph, South Africa has won the race against the Indian house crow, but sadly Kenya has lost the race against the Indian house crow, and it is everywhere in all the major cities. And we're going to see a very determined Indian house crow population growing to encompass over the years the areas that we have for the endemics inside the Mara over years to come. All right, what we're going to do is send you all the way over to Scott, who is sitting on the banks of the fantastic and well-known Mara River.
Yes, indeed, we are sitting on the banks of the beautiful Mara River. There you can see some funnels where the wildebeest come crashing down into the river. This is one of their main crossing points called Miti Moja, which means one tree, and that's because there's one tree directly behind me. As you'll notice, I'm enjoying a cup of coffee. We're a little bit tired after the last 3 nights that we spent out. Well, last night we went to bed early, but we had quite a busy day celebrating the final TV show. So a coffee is in order to pick up one's energy levels before we head on. And we just thought we'd stop here and enjoy this beautiful spot. We don't spend... So that, for those of you who have been with us for the whole safari, would have seen from a distance. You can see there are some wildebeest dotted below it. There we go. Oh no, those are topia. A little bit further to the left, closer to us, there's a decent-sized herd of wildebeest. Certainly enough to enjoy watch crossing. There's some more that Jandre has found. So a little bit of general game in the area, but not nearly as much as we've seen in the couple of months that have passed by. I'm told quite a few people would like to know if this is the same highly technical, specially ventilated shirt that I wore on my interview many years ago. And I don't think so. That one's probably in pieces by now, but I do like this style of shirts. So I've had quite a few of them, but they're quite skinny. You can see there's the problem over there. There's a slight little gap. The flies are enjoying direct access to my skin. Just letting them get involved in the action too, which I think is only fair. Rather there than on my face. So we're going to finish this cup of coffee and then head off further down the river. There's probably about 2 kilometers till you get to a bridge called the Purungat Bridge. And south of that, it's the Tanzanian border. So from there, we are going to head inland away from the river, up onto a hill. And hopefully we're going to find some wildebeest there or any action on the way home. Up till now, we have covered 33 kilometers this afternoon, so it's been quite a long safari, but we've been wanting to cover as much ground as possible. delicious. Filter coffee. Kenya is well known for its delicious coffee. So this is it called a French press, I believe, or a plunger? That's the coffee we use. We get the pre-ground grains, very, very tasty. We pre-make them and then pour them into, let me show you the flask. It's huge. 3 liters of coffee is the minimum we will travel with on our 1-star hotel. Good, well let's show you one last view of the river. There haven't been any crocodiles that I've spotted just yet. So there we're looking upstream. Beautiful. Let's see what we can see up there. Anything going? Ah, well spotted. There are some hippopotamuses. There we go. They'll be getting ready for an evening out. Is that a bird on one of their heads? Was I imagining things? What's that one doing? I wonder. I thought the one on the right had something on its head, but maybe it was just its ear. No crocodiles on the banks. And like I said, they'll be heading out soon to start looking for their 40 kilogram or so grassy salad. It's not going to be too tasty at the moment. It's quite dry, and certainly some rain will be very welcome in these areas because the herbivores have got it fairly tough at the moment. Beautiful. Oh, let's see what's happening over on the other side of the vehicle. Sorry, Bex, I can't copy you here. Just letting Becca know that I can't share any of her questions. It's just a bit shaky, basically, so every second word comes through. But let's take a look at the beautiful glowing pink horizon as the sun begins to set. Sadly, there are no dinosaurs silhouetted in it, but there's a topi in the foreground and some happy tourists in the background. Oh, there's something silhouetted. What a bonus. Some Thompson's gazelle. Good. Very, very marvelous. Oh, okay. No, there was some impala that were chasing one another, but they've stopped. And we are going to, well, I'm going to have this cookie, finish my coffee, and you guys are going to go across to James.
Lucky old him. I'm attempting now to find these lions, which I think are around here somewhere. And then I probably will do the same thing. I will pour a cup of coffee for my good self. I might offer Fergus one. We have Siri sitting on the back today, believe it or not. The real Siri, not my phone Siri. Might offer her one too. I think these fellows here are looking at elephants. We've got the lioness. Oh, she's up. She's going to eat an elephant. Fantastic. There is the sausage tree pride, everybody. There be they. Sitting, standing now. Quite possibly having been chased to the sort of point of getting up by those elephants. There's lightning in the background. There's giggling from a vehicle. It's all happening out here. So for the uninitiated, that is the sausage tree pride, featured quite prominently in our TV shows. They live between pretty much here and the escarpment. I'm just going to get out of the way of this fellow in his vehicle, otherwise he's going to run us down like mangy dogs. There we are. Vive la France. Right, we've said goodbye to them. Let's move in here and have a look-see at the lions. Try not to get stuck on the way. We made it. The drainage systems on these roads, because they are so busy, they're extensive. Which means, I say on the other side of a fairly large pit, to not be able to cross. Anyway, we'll stick this side for now. before they go off and try and hunt the elephants. I am joking, of course, they're highly unlikely to hunt the elephants. There they are. Do you see them, Fergus?
What we're looking for?
It's these things here, these cats are just over here. Wonderful. There they are. Now, of course, the assessment at this time of the day is... She got up to try and get a francolin that was flying past. That was particularly inane. As I said, the trick at this time of the day is to see how full they are. Christine, you're wondering about cats' whiskers and whether they use them for balance. I think they do to a certain extent. No, in fact, I'm not sure if that is in fact an apocryphal story. I'm just trying to remember about when I last read about whiskers. I don't think balance is a huge part of whiskers. I might be wrong, though. As far as I'm aware, they are largely for sensing sort of things in front of the face, perhaps below the eye line and to the sides, because of course cats don't see as well to the sides as some animals do. But personally, I've read many things about whiskers, and very few of those sort of theories make a huge amount of sense to me. So I'm not really sure. And as Scott was saying earlier, of course, leopards definitely have the longest whiskers. And they live in, I suppose, the thickest bush, so maybe it has got something to do with stopping them banging their heads against things, but I don't believe that that's right. There we have them, and they may get up and decide to go hunting. They may not. We will see. I don't think we're going to move too far from here over the next little while. I think they look fairly hungry, so we might be very lucky. Now, this pride seems to have, if not split, it certainly has had a temporary movement into two prides. And initially, I think when we got here, there were 5 lionesses in the pride. She's looking at something. I can't see what it is on account of the fact that Fergus has blinded me with the light. No, there we go. Now I can see. I still can't see what she's looking at, though. Quite possibly some zebra down there. No, I know you can't see there, Fergus. Would you like me to move the car for you? Or are you going to grunt again if I'm...
That was a grunt because I squashed my foot.
Oh, you squashed your foot. Right. Sorry about that. Let me just move slightly. Fergus is quite a vocal cameraman, and when he damages himself, he does tend to make utterances that are not necessarily entirely appropriate. Oh, she's calmed down. I was saying something about the sausage tree pride. Yes, 5 lionesses, I think it was. 3 of them seem to have wafted off somewhere else. But the 2 here and all of these cubs, 5 of them, seem to be the mainstay of the sausage tree pride at the moment, including Jamie's very favourite, the pale one that you can see there just over the top of the windscreen. I'm sorry, I've parked at a funny angle, which makes it very difficult for Fergus not to film the windscreen. She is very pale, isn't she? If you were watching the TV show, you'll know, of course, that Jamie spent all 2 hours of the TV show with them, and they played and played. It was wonderful to see. All righty, now... been instructed to stay right where we are. Rebecca, we are going to stay right where we are, I promise. The sun has now departed these parts, but, well, it hasn't departed South Africa yet. And on account of the fact that it hasn't departed South Africa, we're going to hand you over to Steph, who I believe would like to show you what it looks like over there.
The South African Kruger National Park dry season sunset, basically. And I say dry season because the tree you're looking at doesn't have any leaves on. In summer, that would be almost completely obliterated by a green thick bush, and we'll just get a haze of the sunset. Isn't that fantastic? A lot of dust in the atmosphere this time of the year. I think it's almost what coalesces the rain and calls it, basically, is this dusty atmosphere which allows for these very diffuse red, orangey sunsets. And although we had a little bit of rain this morning, I don't think it got rid of all of the dust in the atmosphere. Lovely, isn't it? Really beautiful view. Stark contrast to the sometimes quite sharp, cloud-lined sunsets that you get in the Mara. Here, although we've got a huge escarpment as well in the Drakensberg, it is much further away. It's about 80 miles or so away from where we are at the moment, not right on our doorstep. And so you have to go to very specific places where we are now to see a ridged outline. But very often we get these clouds that you're seeing now. Peachy coloured sky. Chuck, you'd like to know what the local time and temperature is right now. Louise, what is the exact time and temperature? Chuck, Louise is our director, and she'll have that on hand. And it is 26 degrees Celsius and 79 degrees Fahrenheit. And the time now is, just again with the time there, Louise, I think it's 17:40. So 20 to 6. Oh, yeah, exactly. 17:40, 20 to 6 is the time where we're sitting right now, and 79 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment, which is 24 degrees centigrade. So that is the time now, and it'll start to get about midsummer. We're looking at December on the solstice. You're looking at the sunset being about an hour different to what it is right now. I'm busy sitting over here. And by different, I mean an hour later than it is right now. And we're very fast starting to get longer days out here, earlier mornings and longer days. And the reason why I'm sitting here is because there was a leopard seen here this morning. Leopard do move in the middle of the day. Some leopard are very characterful by comparison to lions, who tend to be quite routine-based. You get some leopard that will walk in the middle of the day. Karula was one, a female leopard that went missing a couple of months back. This used to be the core of her territory. And even though she's got two cubs, a male and a female cub, that live in this particular area, they might have different characters to what she was. You might find that one enjoys climbing to the tops of trees, others would enjoy never being in trees, walking in the middle of the day versus walking late at night, covering long distances or short little bursts where they do zigzags inside their territories. It's going to be quite interesting to see what these two young cubs get up to as they get a little bit older. And now, Free for Two Dream, you wanted to know what is the oldest living tree here or in the Mara? It's quite an interesting question. Free for Two Dream, as would be where you got that Twitter handle from. But that is another conversation, I suppose. Let me think. So one of the oldest species of trees that we'd find over here would be the baobab tree, with the oldest tree around about 2,000 years old, being in this particular area. Older than that would be one of the olives. The wild olive tree grows to an immense age. And just younger than that would be leadwood trees, the Combretum imberbe. So those would be the three trees that are the oldest in this area. We don't find baobabs right where we are now. They occur just a little bit outside of where we can drive around in, but they definitely do occur here, with the closest one in this particular area being about 80 miles from here in Hoedspruit, close to where my house is. The leadwoods there's some big leadwoods over here, and they'll be in and around 1,000 years old, 1,000 to 1,500 years old, and then older than that would be the olives, with the oldest olive in South Africa being 400 kilometers from where we are now, north and west in that direction there. A wild olive tree that a friend of mine knows exactly where it's growing, but he refuses to take me. It's been carbon dated, I think, at about 3,000, just over 3,000 years old. Isn't that amazing? A living being that's so old. Must be one of the oldest living plants on the planet at the moment. And can you imagine what that tree has seen go past it in its 3,000 years? I must be honest, the baobab tree that's 2,000 years old that's near my house, an immense tree that you can go and sit next to, and to think that it's been growing here for 2,000 years, it's mind-boggling. Now to answer your question about the Mara, I don't actually know, to be honest with you. I would imagine that it would be one of the olives as well. You do get olives up there. I don't know the trees well enough there yet. We've only been there for a season. I've only spent 6 months there, of which I spent a good 4.5 months not anywhere close to the game reserve, but building a camp there. And so I haven't had enough time to speak to the local guides there and to find out which is the oldest tree, which takes the longest to grow, to go through the dendrology of that particular area and to find out what is it that makes this place tick from a plant point of view. So I'm looking forward to uncovering those facts and figures over the years to come, but it's not something that I've been able to do in the short time that I've spent up there recently, at least anyway. But definitely I can do that here. I'll carry on thinking about anything older than that, but one person who might be able to tell you something about old trees is my friend James Hendry, another fount of fantastic information. So he wants to tell you a little bit more about the trees in the Mara.
I think that's Steph struggling for something to say when he says, I've got such fantastic information. I'm afraid on the score of old trees in the Sabi Sand, I really couldn't help you. Steph, I suspect, during that sequence told you about the olive tree in the Waterberg. Did he do that, Rebecca? He did. And it's a lovely story of that olive tree in the Waterberg, which I think, 3,000 odd years old, is that correct? See if Rebecca remembers. Somewhere abouts, she says, which means she doesn't remember. I was thinking I have no idea what's the oldest tree in this area, but I do know that there are olive tree species that you find around here. So I suspect that if there is a really substantially old tree around here, could well be an olive tree. So maybe that's what that is. Ooh, these lionesses are getting active. That's very pleasant to see. And they're coming this side of the drainage line. This is magnificent stuff. Snazzy, you want to know if we use the olive tree for health or to eat? As far as I'm aware, the olive tree species that we get in this area are not, in fact, or do not produce fruits that are edible. I'm just going to move back a little bit so we can see where these lines are going. And there are lots and lots of olive species that you get around here. Now, as Scott was saying, he was drinking his coffee, so I am as well, which is why my right hand is out of the window. And Rebecca's told me not to spill it, which obviously means that I'm not drinking very quietly, and I apologize for that. Just wait here. I think they're going to go off down in this direction. There's some more elephants there, but I can't see anything else that they might want to eat. If you're wondering why I've changed my hat, it's because there was a wind and it was blowing my leather hat around the place, so I've had to put on a peak cap. Hopefully there'll be some playing now. Brilliant. They're moving into a nice open area. Fantastic, I can't believe this. Can't believe our luck. Well, I think we'll follow them. difficult driving and drinking, you know, Fergus. Alright, there's a big... Oh, this is going to be very challenging. There's a fairly large bump here. I might have to just empty this slightly. Now, proud cat mama, you're wondering if these cats are old enough to hunt, if the cubs are old enough to hunt. Almost certainly not. They're old enough to catch small things for themselves, but in terms of... Whoa! In terms of... I didn't spill a drop there. In terms of actually catching them things for them, or aiding in a much larger hunt, like, say, a wildebeest or zebra or buffalo, no, they'll be absolutely useless, and they'll be a hindrance. Now, they're just scanning the plains because of their eyes are so good, of course, seeing if there isn't anything that they might want to catch. They look relatively hungry, which is quite nice. Often what happens now, of course, once they've got up, they've done their initial move around, they'll lie down again for another half an hour or so. Which just seems to be what they're thinking about doing now. We'll just get into a position where we can see them nicely. There we go. Alrighty. Scott seems to have managed to find himself some signal and a little bit of communication with Rebecca, so let's head across to him and find out whether his ponies have put on their pajamas.
Hello everyone, and welcome back onto the Puckosaurus Rex. That's the name of this vehicle. Its short abbreviation is Pucka, which means cat, but it's a dinosaur-like cat, hence Saurus Rex, as its rest of its name. There's also a thermal imaging FLIR, which has just come to life. It's mounted on the door of the vehicle. It's a very cool toy. Now, because we have switched over to our nighttime equipment, it means that the lens on the camera is too long to focus on me, so you will no longer be seeing me. Well, if you do, it will be a little bit blurry, like this. I will not really be able to focus on it, sadly. Steffi, you would like to know... What would you like to know, Steffi? It's completely slipped my mind all of a sudden. Forgive me. Oh, if we've got bats in the Mara. We see them basically every night, really, to be honest. Let's try and show you some tonight. They're obviously tricky to film because they fly very quickly and they're not the biggest bats here. But there most certainly are bats here. That's not a bat, that's an impala on the horizon with some Thompson's gazelle. Okay, well, James is in a situation that we want to get ourselves into. He is following some lions, and I'm sure you would like to join him in on that action. So off you go, and hopefully the next time you see us, we'll have some lions of our own.
Indeed, and I'm sorry about Scott's break-up in picture, but he's in a difficult area. We're with the back of this little pride now, just with the youngest, or the rearmost cubs, if you like. The adults just up ahead. I can almost make them out with my naked eye, but I'm now going to try and avoid... Ooh, lucky I turned the lights on there. That was very nearly an accident. Come on, little cubby, I need to go around the back of you. There we go. Thank you so much. This is one of those drainage systems that I was talking about. We'll see if we can get across here. There we go. Oh, now, Lloyd, you say cat whiskers detect sound. That's very interesting. Thank you for that. I'd love to know the mechanism by which they then communicate, either with the ear, I suppose, or with the... Alrighty. Now we have the lions next to us. There they are. just going to stop here. So I've got a little bit too close to the bars, which is why you're getting that flare. I think, is it, Ferg? And I cannot see anything for them to hunt around here, but we shall follow them and see what they do. There's the two hunting lionesses. The cubs are staying relatively far back. There they are. But they're certainly not sort of waiting. And you can see none of them look very fat. Good news for us. Fergus, what's that in the back? Have you got a tiger moth starting up? Alrighty, we're going to go back across to Steph, but only in 30 seconds. He is apparently heading towards the hyenas. We'll continue following these lions. They're heading now towards some elephants, which should be quite interesting. But while we wait and see what they do, we'll go across to Steph, who is in South Africa, about 2,500 miles away, on his way to the hyena den.
We're back down into South Africa, and where we are making our way back into the area where we saw those young lions from a little bit earlier on the drive today. We're going to see if we can make it across the reserve before the end of drive today to go and pop our head in at the hyena den and go and see what's going on over there. So that's something that I've missed being out in the Mara, is access to hyenas and to hyena dens. They are superb value for viewing value. And we did find ourselves fairly far away, or at least by my terms. I know my friend Brent would be able to cover the distance in a blink of an eye, but this is about as fast as I like driving around over here. You just miss so much when you go fast. I suppose in Brent's opinion, you'd miss just as many opportunities for cats and hyenas and lions if you drove any slower than he does. Beautiful bird. Right. Didn't want to land for us. That, if you managed to catch a flash of colour that came off the front left of the bonnet, that was the brilliantly coloured lilac-breasted roller, aptly named for its rolling display that it would start to do any time now, which I'll show you on a walk. I'll show you on a walk one of these fine days. I must say the temperature is dropping. It's not quite uncomfortable just yet, but it's definitely dropping to a point where I'm considering putting on a jersey, which is unusual because I've been blessed with that sort of Central African highland weather in the Mara, which never gets cold. Beautiful. Jim Lynn, you would like to know if those 3,000-year-old trees, those African olives that we were talking about, still produce fruit? It's a good question. That I don't really know the answer to that question, but I can't imagine why not. Trees wouldn't run out of the energy needed to produce fruit, and I would imagine that they absolutely do. So if I were to take a wild guess at that particular tree, it absolutely would still produce fruit. The baobab trees which are around here, which are 2,000 years old, they all produce fruit still, and flowers. And the leadwoods, which are 1,000 years old, 1,000 to 1,500 years old, they also produce fruit. So I would imagine that a tree would produce fruit if it could. Water and enough sunlight and good enough nutrition dependent. But if it's able to, I would imagine it would absolutely be able to produce fruit, even at that age. It's a nice question there, Jim Lynn. There's some male impala here in front of us. We're going to be slipping by them. Hello? Debbie, you want to know if you really get male and female trees? You absolutely do. There would be marula trees. You get male, which produce a flower, fruit. Although Although I'm trying to think of where I can corroborate that with, because I might be walking myself out onto a limb there. That's actually a good question. I'm trying to think. I've always known it from guiding terminology, you know, talks around the fire and such. Guides talking the most, and field guides are well known for speaking the most unbelievable amounts of rubbish to one another, just in an effort to try and one-up your friend. And so I'm trying to think of where I've heard of these male and female trees. So we've got impala giving alarm calls here, and I want to know why. So let's just see what this is all about. Remember a little bit earlier we were showing you about, while we have a look into what's bothering these impala, James has got some awesome action going on. We'll catch up with you in a bit.
We have a fascinating little interaction going on here. Look at the elephant and the lions. They can see him. He can see them probably. I wonder if he can, you know. I don't think he's seen them. Elephants don't react like that to lions. They almost always, in my experience, will turn and face him. Look at the little one going towards him there. He's oblivious. Look at the cub trying his luck. Look at the other little one. I don't think they had any idea. I'd been more... I may have predicted that slightly sooner. Wow. Isn't that cool? So I don't think he saw them. I'm pretty sure he would have turned to face them if he had. And I'm told that elephants do have a blind spot if you walk up sort of halfway along the body directly to the side, so perpendicular, and then further behind from there. They won't see you coming if they don't hear you coming. And they've done that in the dark. Now, an elephant doesn't really need to see in the dark, of course, because it's so big. And so it really doesn't need its eyes as its major defense. That was fascinating, actually. Let's just move a little bit closer so that they're not quite at the end of the light range. Oh, they're in front of us, Ferg. I, of course, can't see them now at all. You have a better view of them than I do.